Hey everybody, good afternoon. It's Kentario. I'm back with Christ and comic books today. I'm looking to talk about a rather serious topic, actually. I've been thinking on it for quite a while and didn't know exactly how I wanted to go about this topic, but being that one, it's personal, two, it's still prevalent today, and three, I think this perspective of the matter is something that's so very important to point out and to actually discuss, to actually talk about. And I want to start off by talking about it. And if you have any feedback on the topic, please, I'd love to hear back from you in the comments. I'd love to hear, even if you think it makes any sense. I want to hear from you because I think everyone's opinion matters on everything that we have to deal with in the world today. And one of the things that I have dealt with when I was younger, and I'll be honest with you, I still deal with even today, is bullying. Bullying is a very, very life changing thing to take place in someone's life. It's a very damaging thing, but it's also an empowering thing. And that's the two reasons why I want to talk about this. It does do damage, but it also is empowering. So, to speak from a personal level, keep in mind this is Christ and comic books. Y'all, excuse me, I don't know why I'm doing that so consistently, but anyway, so when I was growing up, I had a young man. I can't remember his name. I knew his last name was Adams. Interestingly enough, with my last name being Adams, pretty weird. But his last name was Adams, and we had moved here when I was 8 years old to South Carolina. So this is about 1998, 1999. By the time we're actually here, we got the home here in South Carolina. We had me start riding the bus and everything. My sister wasn't old enough to ride with me, so it was me going to the bus stop by myself. And I was going by myself. There was an older gentleman. He probably maybe fifth grade at the time, maybe sixth grade. I can't remember specifically, but I was in second. And so as I was going to this bus stop, this young man would be bullying me, picking on me, insulting me, making jokes about me, calling me a nerd, and all those sorts of things. The classic jokes for kids who wear glasses, or the guy that's new in school, he gets picked on about the same thing. The new guy on the bus, he's going to get picked on, especially if he's not socializing at the level everyone else is, doesn't fit in. He gets picked on. I got picked on a lot, and it happened for maybe a year, until I think some things changed. He got to a higher grade and everything like that, so he had to ride a different bus. That's when things kind of stopped, and it all got really, really quiet. But it played a part on me to be picked on, genuinely. Interestingly enough, the young man, he was drinking. He was on a motorcycle, and he wrecked the motorcycle. And shockingly enough, he wrecked the motorcycle not in the exact same spot, but in the exact area of where our bus stop was. And so there's a cross built up there in that location for him. And one of the things that my parents had me do to kind of help me move forward from that was having me go to the somewhat wake that they were having. It was him and all of his friends, and they were it was all of his friends, and they were all at the bus stop sitting there, remembering him and talking about him, the things they remember of him. And so that experience really kind of was, in one sense, eye-opening, and two, kind of crossing wires there, because they were saying in one sense he was doing very positive and life-beneficial things. In another sense, they were kind of speaking in an area of kind of wasting time and, just playing around with his life. So it was kind of weird to hear those two sides of the one person, but it's really the playing around that what took his life. So it really shocked me, but it helped me move forward in essence. And when I say that I still deal with it today, it's not that I'm being picked on. It's that I react whenever I hear certain things that remind me of that experience. One funny thing is my wife jokingly and, playfully, lovingly, because she thinks it's adorable, she calls me weird. And when our relationship started, hearing her call me weird really upset me and really made me angry, because of how I took that to be spoken towards me from people that didn't like me, or people that really didn't care about me. Even my friends did it, but it was just like, I'll get you later by doing this or that, playing this and that. But when it comes to your actual significant other, someone you want to spend your life with, you really don't want to hear those things that otherwise hurt you. So hearing it from her was very hard. But I learned what she was really doing, why she was really doing it, and two, why I was reacting that way. So it brought that revelation to me that those are things I need to be mindful of and need to make sure that I am overcoming, so that I can continue to press forward to be successful and become stronger. Because bullying can have that effect. I know the biggest thing is that bullying is leading to people taking their lives. It's leading people to hurt themselves. It's leading people to doing those mass shootings. And that's what's really bringing damage into the school system. It's one of the real things that's bringing damage into people's development, thinking things need to change in certain areas, thinking that certain things need to be accepted to otherwise stop the bullying. And I know that is a very prevalent thing, and I know that is something that's really happening and that's really being highlighted because it was otherwise being ignored. But I want to bring some light to the impact of bullying that I don't think gets talked about as much today, that needs to be revamped, needs to be re-looked at. And that is looking at the bully as being that person that can transform someone's otherwise, I'm just here life to my life is something in some way. So what I mean by that is, and to kind of use as an example, I want to go the comic book route to start this out. And so if you look at one essence, you look at Peter Parker. Peter Parker started off as a scientific nerd character. I'm going to go a little deep here, so if you just listen and work with me, I'm pretty sure you guys will enjoy this. But he was really just a scientific nerd character who just liked looking and like studying and gawking over the girl he liked without pursuing her, loving all the things that he studied and reviewed in his life, but it's not as though genuinely he was actually looking to go there. And I guess you could say the comics had a way of portraying that in the essence of he would see Mary Jane, but he wouldn't pursue Mary Jane. He would study science, but he would pursue science. It was otherwise as though he could just watch it, but he didn't want to become that great person he could otherwise have become. We see a lot of that today now with, one, how fans view Spider-Man, two, how the storyline is actually being written, because fans view Spider-Man as, if you're this smart, why aren't you being successful like Tony Stark? So that's a lot of reasons why people don't like Spider-Man, because he won't take advantage of his intelligence. And they really hit on that in the storyline of Superior Spider-Man, because where Spider-Man wasn't doing things to change his life, to make things easier, to bring a balance, to help him and his family succeed, when Doc Ock, and that's, go read the book, learn about it if you want to. That's one of the stories I highly recommend. Check out Comics Explained. He does a story, he does a series on the Superior Spider-Man. But Doc Ock ends up getting the body of Spider-Man by putting his mind in there. And what he does with that is he changes things about Peter Parker's life. He establishes for Peter Parker a new relationship with somebody else. He gets Peter Parker started on having his own business. So now a miniature business has been started by Peter Parker due to Doc Ock, which what Peter Parker was otherwise not willing to do for himself. So that's one thing that was really standing out about him as a person, was he wasn't going to pursue the things that was going to make him great. Now, to really dial it back to before he got bitten by the spider, he had the bully Flash Thompson. I'm pretty sure all of you know who he is. I love the Spider-Man movies, I do, but I don't like how they portray Flash Thompson, because he's actually more influential as far as Peter Parker's development than people give him credit for. He was a person that bullied him, picked on him, made fun of him a lot. But after he became a hero, after he became bitten and got the powers, he stood up to his otherwise opponent, the person that was, bullying him all the time. And then there was a level of respect built between the two after finally standing up for himself. And that kind of dwindled down a lot as far as the story goes. Of course, they warred here and there about little things, but otherwise things started to change. And you even learned that what Flash Thompson loved is he loved Spider-Man. He respected Spider-Man so much and thought he was a great hero, but he didn't like Peter Parker. And that's something that I think is so significant, is because when he gets the powers, he can make that change. He can be an influence, and he had that influence on his bully. But when he's just Peter Parker and he's not trying to become anything or be anything, it's that bully's influence that makes him have to decide, am I going to be great or am I going to become as bad or pathetic as they see me to be? In other words, another way of looking at that, becoming a villain. But the influence of that really kind of changed who he was. Now, I know that's very controversial to say, but I really do believe Flash Thompson had an influence that stirred Peter Parker, after being bitten, of course, that I'm strong now. I can stand up for myself. I can make a difference, especially after the death of Uncle Ben. That changed his perspective of what he's capable of and what he needs to do with that. So one, Flash Thompson influenced what he's capable of, and then you have Uncle Ben who influenced how he should be doing what he's capable of in the right manner. So that's really the influence of bullying. Another aspect of that bullying, if you've ever heard of My Hero Academia, I know a lot of my anime fans, my manga fans and friends, you guys really do love that series. That series is blowing up like crazy. And that's another hero story, of course. And one of the things is people love one of the characters named Bakugo. The reason that they like Bakugo is because, he's really that tough guy. I'm going to go do this. I don't care. You're not going to stop me. I'm going to be the strongest no matter what you do. People love that kind of character. The thing about that character is that character bullied the main character Izuku Midoriya. He got bullied by Bakugo, but people still love Bakugo. But if you really look at that influence, Bakugo influenced and encouraged Midoriya to become a better and stronger person, whether or not he had powers. He's always been encouraged by the bullying and the pressing that Bakugo put on his back. That drove him, that made him push towards it. And if you listen to the actual story, you'll hear that Midoriya looks to Bakugo as that next level, as that person to aspire to. He really encourages me because he drives to be that hero. That's how Midoriya sees Bakugo. But even though Bakugo is actually the bully for Midoriya, Bakugo still aspires to be a hero. So that's not to take away from him as a person, because although he bullies, he still has aspirations. He still has dreams. But because of that influenced Midoriya to press, to be stronger, to strive towards his greatness. That's the impact that bullying had. And like I said, I know that's controversial, but I think it's so influential. To switch it on to a spiritual side, I know there's several instances where you could say, well, the bullying started in the Bible here, bullying started in the Bible there. You could say it started with Cain and Abel, but being that he didn't let Abel live, it was just an instant kill. I wouldn't call that a quite bullying story. You could say that with Noah, being that Noah was, being harassed and persecuted by the people around him because he's building a boat in the desert where it's never rained. That certain level of bullying there. But one of the forms of bullying that I really want to isolate in this video is the story of Joseph. You can find that in Genesis chapter 37, the main portion I kind of want to look at. But the story of Joseph looks at a young man who is the 11th child out of 12. And his father decides that instead of letting this son go out in the fields and work in the fields as hard as his brothers do, I'm going to keep him inside, teach him about the scribing, teach him about the inner workings of what has established the home that we have, the riches we have, the fields we have, who to put in what place. He educated him. He made him more scholarly than physically empowered. So basically what Jacob actually was. I want to do a video on the story of Jacob and Esau, but we're going to definitely look at that later because I still owe you guys the Death Note videos, so just be patient with me. But when you look at Joseph was even given the coat of many colors by his father, Jacob. And another way to look at that is he gave him a colorful, very beautiful robe, took a lot of riches, took a lot of special, linen to make, and that was given unto his son to show that love and that value, which wasn't something that he demonstrated to the other 10, or you could say 11 sons as far as the storyline goes. So with what happens following that is he starts to have dreams where the brothers will actually look up to him, respect him, in a sense of worship even. Same thing happens a second time. He has a similar dream in a different illustration that portrays the same thing, but leads to even the parents doing the same thing, is worshiping him. And he was just simply interpreting what he witnessed in his dreams. So, and that really disturbed, not only the brothers, but it did kind of disturb the parents. Like, boy, get off it. Stop it. What are you talking about? You're crazy. It kind of brought that into light. But with the brothers having a stirred frustration and hatred for him already, that led to them casting him into a pit, faking the story to the father that their brother was actually killed, and later on leading to them selling him into Egyptian captivity, into Egyptian slavery. I won't necessarily say captivity, but it was slavery, because of course they had a system for that back in those days. So he was sold into slavery. And the brothers, it was as though the brothers had lifted a burden, but the brothers had to live with the burden of, that death, being that it weighed on the father so much and impacted the family so much. But they were the bullies for Joseph. They were the ones that discouraged Joseph's possibility of becoming great. And that's how people see bullies, is that they're discouraging someone from becoming great. But the interesting thing is, it didn't stop Joseph from pushing and striving to be the greatest that he was. He went to go work under another Egyptian lord, and this Egyptian lord actually ended up elevating Joseph because of all the work that he put in. Because of the upbringing and training that Joseph had, Joseph was able to bring those skills to be able to reproduce and productively get work done under the name of this lord, and the Lord elevated him. Now, in this situation where he had been obedient and, been fruitful, I guess you could say, he ends up getting seduced by Potiphar. That's the name of the Lord. His name was Potiphar. He gets seduced by Potiphar's wife. So that led to Potiphar's wife deceiving everyone into thinking that Joseph actually moved on her when it was really her moving on Joseph, because Joseph denied her. Joseph refused to do that. He didn't want to betray Potiphar by making moves on his wife. But they ended up imprisoning him because of the lies that she told about him. Potiphar knew they were lies, but Potiphar also knew that he couldn't risk that look being on him and his house if he had allowed for Joseph to stay, regardless of what took place. So he sent Joseph into captivity, into the actual prisons. So he was jailed and put away. While he was there, it's interesting again because he's put in a situation where the two other people, I believe one was a butler and another one was just another regular servant, they were both put into a situation where they're telling their dreams, and Joseph is in the midst of them telling their dreams. Now, where Joseph had experienced, if I interpret this dream, I risk being looked at as crazy and even worse, bringing dispersions and hurt upon myself. He could have chose to stay quiet. But one of the things that stirred was, I know what my dreams mean. I know what I am capable of. I know what I see, and I know them to be true. So he still interpreted those dreams anyway. One was a good dream, where someone's going to be able to go back and be into servitude, work under Pharaoh. The other one was one guy being led to his death. So, of course, the one was taken away for his death, but as the one was taken to go work under Pharaoh, Joseph told him, remember me. He told him, please remember me. So a couple of years passed, several years passed, and Joseph is still in captivity. And it finally came a time where Pharaoh needed someone to interpret his dreams, and Joseph ended up being that one. Joseph ended up being second to Pharaoh. I'm making a long story short. He ended up being put in a leadership position, reconciling the relationship between him and his brothers. I highly recommend that you read Genesis 37 and forward. It is a great story if you want to see someone who is gifted and doesn't throw away his gifts because of persecution. I highly recommend the story of Joseph. Joseph stuck to his, as you would say, stuck to his guns. He stuck to his trade, and he ended up getting promoted. He ended up moving forward. No matter how many people, no matter how many times they tried to put him down, he reached his goal. And I think Joseph is a great portrayal of what you are capable of in the midst of being bullied, in the midst of being insulted for what the gifts that are being seen of you. Bullies do that. They see the gift, they see it not being used, they see the potential, and they challenge that potential. Believe it. I'm telling you, that's really what ends up happening when it comes to bullying. A lot of bullying is from seeing potential. Yes, there's racial influences. Yes, there's size influences, looks influences, color, dress influences, how you look. All of those things influence bullying, but also potential influences bullying. So someone's going to see your potential. Someone's going to challenge your potential. They're going to disrespect what you're capable of. But you got to know that if I stand firm in what I'm capable of, I will outshine them. And even more so, I'll have them looking up to me. Your story can end with you being the one that transforms a nation. You being the one that the people come to for help. You being the one that the people end up bowing to. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I mean that in a reverential way. I mean that they will see you for who you are and see that you made it and respect that. We're not talking about haters in this. We're talking about that impact that it has from what you've gone through and how that can change your future, especially if you respond to it in the right way. Well, I do want to thank you guys for joining me here in Christ in Comic Books. We CNC, we got to really talk about something serious, and I hope that I was able to really hit on a very powerful thing and hopefully kind of bring back another perspective of the bullying. It's not to say that I'm changing it. It's to say to revamp that it can have that positive influence. Thank you guys, and y'all have a blessed one.